Testing. All praise, all glory, all honor is most certainly due to the Most High, the God of the patriarchs Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and peace to you in the name of Jesus. This is your brother Elisha Israel of the household of faith, and I count it truly a blessing each and every time that I can come before you to preach the word of God, and never do I count it as a light thing to do so. Just a little bit about the household of faith. We meet every Sabbath, which at Indiana University Northwest, Library Conference Center Room LC 105 at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. If you're not in Northwest Indiana area or Chicagoland area, we meet at Indiana University Northwest, 3400 Broadway. Library Conference Center Room LC 105. If you're not in that area, you can live stream our services on IsraelTeach.org as well as IsraelTeach right here on this YouTube channel. We live stream on both places. It's just as a backup, just in case one is not working or we have some kind of technical difficulty, we have another. We also have a radio broadcast. Our radio show airs every Sunday at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time on WLTH 1370 AM, the region's choice. We also live stream those as well. Simply go to IsraelTeach.org. That's www.IsraelTeach.org, IsraelTeach. And you can click on the live radio broadcast link at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time and listen to the broadcast at that time. And with that, brothers and sisters, I want to get right into today's lesson. And the title is The Significance of Jerusalem in History and Prophecy. The significance of Jerusalem in history and prophecy. Brothers and sisters, you cannot deny the significance of this particular city. Most people claim to believe in God, claim to be Bible believers, and have no idea of the significance of this place in history as well as in the time to come. It is the city of the great king. It is the city of peace. It is the city upon which from that place that the Messiah will reign, brothers and sisters. That's what it is. It is the most important city on this planet. It's not a coincidence that all this turmoil and fighting has gone on throughout the annals of human history. When you look at when you look at the Crusades, and even when you look at today and the disputes over the Temple Mount in particular, brothers and sisters, it is in the three so-called major religions is significant. And even in Islam, it's the third so-called most holy city as far as related to, I'm saying so-called related to Islam, okay? You have Mecca, Medina, then Jerusalem. And Christianity is significant, even though it's talked about less, and then what we call Judaism, you already know what it is. It's the most significant city, obviously, but I say so-called because really, in actuality, this book is not talking about religion, okay? It's talking about a way of life and given to a specific people, the children of Israel, okay? And these are the ones that have been scattered in the diaspora, in the slavery by way of ships all over this earth. In the American context, maybe so-called African Americans, okay? That's when you read in Deuteronomy 28. Read that in its entirety and then give you some insight into what happened to the people and what their position is right now. See, the people who claim to be Israel right now, or Israelis, are on top right now. They live off the fat of the land. They live amongst their enemies as the most powerful amongst their enemies. All right? They have wealth right now, per capita, one of the wealthiest groups, even though one of the smallest, and yet when you look at what the curses were to be placed on Israel, you understand that they couldn't possibly be the people. The Bible said, curses every man that hangeth on a tree. You have to ask yourself the question, who's been hanging on these trees, even until this day, as the accursed of God? The so-called Negro, that so-called African American. And that is not because we're inferior in any kind of way, but rather it is because we disobeyed our God. We are the only people that God manifested himself unto. No other people, I'm going to say that again. No other people have that record. No other people can say that but God's chosen people. He said, only you have I known of all the nations of the earth, therefore I will punish you for all your iniquities. And to that people, to our people, Jerusalem is extremely significant. So we're going to look at that. We're going to start off in Genesis, the 14th chapter. Genesis 14, and we're going to start off at verse 1. And see the first mention of Jerusalem, okay? And it is called Salem, okay? So let's read that. This is Genesis 14 and verse 1. It says, and it came to pass in the days of Amraphel, king of Shinar, Arioch, king of Elasar, Chedorlaomer, king of Elam, and Tidal, king of nations, that these made war with Bera, king of Sodom, and with Bersha, king of Gomorrah, Shinab, king of Admah, and Shemaber, king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, which is Zoar. Okay, I'm going to skip down a little bit. I want to go to verse 11. It says, and they took all the goods of Sodom and Gomorrah and all the victuals and went their way. And this was important because this is what Lot was. Remember, Lot and Abraham, they separated themselves. You know, there was some bickering amongst their servants, and they separated themselves, and Lot chose Sodom. Okay? So it says, and this is before it was burned up for sodomy or homosexual behavior. So it says, and they took Lot, Abram's brother's son, at whom, because that was his nephew, who dwelt in Sodom, and his goods, and departed. And there came one that had escaped and told Abram the Hebrew. Okay, he was called the Hebrew. That's the first time the word Hebrew is mentioned. You know, it say that is meaning the descendant of Eber, which means to cross over. Okay, but it said, for he dwelt in the plain of Mamre, the Amorite, brother of Eshcol, and brother of Aner. And these were confederate with Abram. And when Abram heard that his brother was taken captive, he armed his trained servants, born in his own house. Now, understand, this is the man of God. This is a man of God who he said, walk before me and be thou perfect. Right? So he wasn't just some pushover, though. When some went down that caused, that made it necessary for self-defense, he armed. This is what he did. It says, and when Abram heard that his brother was taken captive, he armed his trained servants, born in his own house, 318, and pursued them unto Dan. He said, let's ride. Let's ride. It come a time where you have to ride, even the servants of God. If you ever notice in the Bible, they fighting in the name of God often. Mighty men fighting in the name of God. It says, and he divided himself against them, he and his servants by night, and smote them and pursued them unto Hebron, which is on the left hand of Damascus. And he brought back all the goods, and also brought again his brother Lot, and his goods, and the women also, and the people. See, there come a time when you do have to ride, like I said. There come a time we have to lay it on the line. And if it mean your life, it mean your life. That's why I say certain things, like, for example, something happened to your family, like something like this here, that's an act of war. You need to go retrieve your brother and all the people that were taken. That's the righteous thing to do. See, in this diaspora, we have been deceived into thinking that to be walked on is righteous. There are certain times where war is the righteous. I give you an example. When you look at what's going on in like places like Nigeria, or in the Arab world, other places in the Arab world, where women are being taken and sold into sexual slavery. Women that are young as 12 years old, being raped. Listen, if you are a man and you don't have an AK-47, you have a stick and a rock, you need to go try to get them. You need to go try to get them. Listen, a man should die protecting his family. If it means to die to protect your family, that's what you should do. That's what you should do. It's time to ride. At certain times, it's time to ride, not to be walked over, but to stand up and fight. I was listening to Dr. John Henry Clark. He was talking about an issue in Africa where some Europeans had invaded, and they had taken thousands of women and just took the women. Just took the women. I believe he said thousands of women had took the women, and he said, listen, some invaders took the women, and then some of the men rose up and said, listen, if we don't go back and fight and try to retrieve the women that have been taken, then we have basically forfeited our manhood and become women ourselves. We might as well, he said, we might as well, take duties in the kitchen, right? See, that's even in slavery in this country, you couldn't be a man. Because why? Because If another man could come in your front door in front of your face and take your wife and take your daughter when he saw fit, you forfeited your manhood. But that's what sometimes it's better to die with honor. And Abraham wasn't having. He said, this is my family. This is my blood. Let's ride. Let's ride. So it says, and he divided himself against him, and he and his servants by night, and smote them and pursued him unto Habal, which is on the left hand of Damascus. And he brought back all the goods, and also brought again his brother Lot and his goods, and the women also, and the people. You see other examples of that. Sometimes, again, it's just time to ride. Verse 17, though, because this is what I came here for. And the king of Sodom went out to meet him after his return from the slaughter of Chedorlaomer, and of the kings that were with him at the valley of Sheba, which is in the king's dale. And Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought forth bread and wine, and he was the priest of the Most High God. Okay, so now it says it was a Melchizedek that came. Okay, this Melchizedek came, and it said king of Salem. Salem means peace, right? So that's what Jerusalem is. It's the city of peace. Okay, whoever this Melchizedek came, whoever he is, we're gonna find out who he is. People say, "Oh, you don't know who he is." Yeah, I know who he is. Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought forth bread and wine. That's significant. And he was the priest of the Most High God. And it says, and he blessed him and said, "Blessed be Abram of the Most High God, possessor of heaven and earth, and blessed be the Most High God, which hath delivered thine enemies into thy hand." And he gave him tithes of all. So Abraham, he's paying tithes to this Melchizedek, even though when you read about tithes, who was that paid to? That was paid to the Levites. They were in his loins, but there was one greater than Levi, even one greater than Abraham, because he's paying tithes to him. Let's just look at that. Let's go to real quick. Let's go to Hebrews. Hebrews, the 7th chapter. I've heard all kinds of things. Well, you don't necessarily know who it is. Well, I mean, when we read the description of him, the Bible being true, when we read the description of him, we should understand who it is. Now, it also already said he's king of Salem. Then it said he was the high priest. Let's read something else here. This is Hebrews. The author of Hebrews in chapter 7, verse 1 writes, "For this Melchizedek, king of Salem," okay, or Jerusalem, it says, "priest of the Most High God, who met Abraham returning from the slaughter of the kings and blessed him, to whom also Abraham gave a tenth part of all, first being by interpretation king of righteousness, and after that also king of Salem, which is king of peace." That's what Salem means. Then it says, "without father, without mother, without descent." So who is this coming? That came and saw him and said, "Without mother, without father, without descent." You can't go back. That's talk. You can't go back and find his genealogy, because he was God in the beginning. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The same was in the beginning with God. All things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. That's talking about none other than Jesus. He is the high priest. He is also a king, and he gave those two offices over to man for a time. The high priest through Aaron's lineage. The kings, you saw David, Solomon, etc. Jehoshaphat, Josiah, these kings, because he was reigning, when you read, he was reigning over Israel as king before they selected Saul, right? And that was prophesied that they would even do that. But nevertheless, what did he do when he made the sacrifice, which was himself? He took back the position of high priest, and he sits right on the right hand of the Father, making intercession. He didn't come to blood of bulls and goats. He came with his own blood, and he said, he says this is the new covenant, right? The blood of the new covenant, not with blood of bulls and the goats, with that old covenant he read in Exodus 24, but he talked about a new covenant, which was his blood. And what did he do? He came with what? Bread and wine. What did Melchizedek come with? Bread and wine. See, it's not hard. It's not rocket science. It says, without father, without mother, without descent, having neither beginning of days nor end of life. Jesus Christ the same yesterday and today and forever. But made like unto the Son of God abideth the priest continually. See, he don't die off. And then you gotta put another priest in there. No, he doesn't die. Because he's God. But that's what that's talking about. But what did it say? He was king of Salem. Let's confirm that Salem is talking about Jerusalem. Let's go to Psalms. Let's go to Psalms, the 76th division of Psalms. Psalm 76, and we're going to pick it up. Psalm 76, and we're going to pick it up at verse 1. It says here, pertaining to the power of God, it says, in Judah is God known. His name is great in Israel. In Salem also is his tabernacle and his dwelling place in Zion. Where's Zion? That's in Jerusalem, brothers and sisters. So that's what we know when we're talking about Salem, what we read about in Genesis 14, we should understand that that's talking about Jerusalem. All right, let's go and look at some of the history of this place. All right, because it was not always well, let's look at it. Let's go to Joshua 15, because it was not always inhabited, but obviously by Israel. Okay, Abraham was given a promise that his seed would dwell in the land, but before that, what did they do? They were 430 years in Egypt. Then they came out of Egypt and dwelt 40 years in the wilderness. Now, in the days of Joshua, they're to go into the land of Canaan, or the promised land, and there are people inhabiting that land. Let's see who's inhabiting this land. This is Joshua, the 15th chapter. This is the history of this place. Joshua 15, and we want to pick it up at verse 1. Joshua 15 and verse 1. It says, this then was the lot of the tribe of the children of Judah by their families, even to the border of Edom, the wilderness of Zin, southward was the uttermost part of the south coast. Let's skip down a little bit. Let's go to verse 6. Because we want to find out who was here. It says, and the border went up to Beth Hogla and passed along by the north of Beth Araba, and the border went up to the stone of Bohan, the son of Reuben. And the border went up toward Debir from the valley of Achor, and so northward looking toward Gilgal, that is before the going up to Adumim, which is on the south side of the river, and the border passed toward the waters of En Shemesh, and the goings out thereof were in Rogel, excuse me. And the border went up by the valley of the son Hinnom unto the south side of the Jebusite. The same is Jerusalem. Okay, so who was there? You had the Jebusites inhabiting that land first. Let's skip down and go to verse. I'm gonna skip down all the way to verse 63. It says, as for the Jebusites, the inhabitants of Jerusalem, the children of Judah could not drive them out, but the Jebusites dwell with the children of Judah at Jerusalem unto this day. So at that point, they were still there. That's what was in that land initially. They would not able to drive them out totally. Okay, let's go to Joshua, the 18th chapter. So we're in Joshua still. We want to go just right to the 18th chapter and read one verse. This is Joshua 18, and we want to read verse 28. All right. It says, because you had Benjamin there at first. It says, as Zelah, Elath, and Jebusite, which is Jerusalem, Gibeah, and Kirjath, 14 cities with their villages. This is the inheritance of the children of Benjamin according to their families. Okay, so that's just some history on this place. Let's go to Judges. Let's go to Judges 1. I want to go to Judges 1 and verse 18. Judges 1 and verse 18. So it says here, also Judah to Gaza with the coast thereof, and Escalon with the coast thereof, and Ekron with the coast thereof. We're going to skip down to verse, I'm sorry, we'll keep reading, forgive me. All right. So it says, and the Lord was with Judah, and he drave out the inhabitants of the mountain, but could not drive out the inhabitants of the valley, because they had chariots of iron. And they gave Hebron unto Caleb, as Moses said, and he expelled thence the 3 sons of Anak. Try to get this land. 21. And the children of Benjamin did not drive out the Jebusites that inhabited Jerusalem, but the Jebusites dwell with the children of Benjamin in Jerusalem unto this day. Okay, but something happened, brothers and sisters, in that city. Let's go all the way. This is over a series, course of years. We're going to go to 2 Samuel. 2 Samuel. Okay, because the first king you had of Jerusalem was Saul, and he was a Benjamite. But let's go and find out something about this David and what he did. This is 2 Samuel. We want to pick it up at chapter 5. I want to find out something he did pertaining to this city. And we want to pick it up at verse 6. It says, and the king and his men went to Jerusalem unto the Jebusites. The inhabitants of the land were speaking to David, saying, except thou take away the blind and the lame, thou shalt not come in hither, thinking David cannot come in hither. Nevertheless, David took the stronghold of Zion, the same as the city of David. And David said, on that day, whosoever getteth up to the gutter and smiteth the Jebusites and the lame and the blind that are hated of David's soul, he shall be chief and captain. Wherefore they said, the blind and the lame shall not come into the house. So David dwelt in the fort and called it the city of David, and David built round about from Milo and inward. And David went on and grew great, and the Lord God of hosts was with him, even in battle. Even in battle. Like he said, who is this uncircumcised Philistine that should defy the armies of the living God? He said, man, just like I slew that bear and that lion, he's toast. Right? With the power of God. So, the city of David, Jerusalem, became the city of David, and he conquered it, and that became his capital. Because understand, when he was king, he reigned 40 years. When he was king, he had 7 in Hebron, but then the other 33 years, he reigned from his capital, Jerusalem, the city of peace, which is the same place that Jesus is going to reign from. All right, but let's keep reading though, because we want to find out something that his son did. We want to go to 1 Kings. We want to go to 1 Kings, and we want to pick it up at 1 Kings, the 15th chapter. 1 Kings, the 15th chapter, because this place is significant. 1 Kings, the 15th chapter, and verse 4. And this is from God. This says in verse 4, it says, nevertheless, for David's sake did the Lord his God give him a lamp in Jerusalem to set up his son after him and to establish Jerusalem. Again, Jerusalem was significant. So what did this son do? It said again, it said God gave him a lamp in Jerusalem to set up his son after him and to establish Jerusalem. Okay, so let's go to 2 Chronicles. Let's go to 2 Chronicles and see what did his son do. 2 Chronicles 3 and verse 1 in this particular place. And this is very significant. Like I was talking about a few lessons ago, or a lesson or so ago, about the temple. This is 2 Chronicles 3 and 1. It says, then Solomon, who was David's son, began to build the house of the Lord at Jerusalem in Mount Moriah. Mount Moriah in Jerusalem is significant, even going all the way back to who? Going back to Abraham, when he said, get thee up unto the land of Moriah and sacrifice your son there. And that was a shadow of what Christ would do and the Father would do. You had the Father sacrificing his son, laying the wood upon his son, and him being a human sacrifice. But God provided a lamb, which is none other than Jesus the Christ. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. Whosoever believes in him shall not perish, but have everlasting life. So it says there, Solomon, because it said he's going to set up his son. We just read that in 1 Kings 15 and 4. It says, then Solomon began to build the house of the Lord at Jerusalem in Mount Moriah, where the Lord appeared unto David his father in the place that David had prepared in the threshing floor of Ornan the Jebusite. Because the Jebusites was there, brothers and sisters. And you can read about that in 1 Chronicles 21. All right, but it says, well, that's good. That's good on that. Let's go to, let's see. Let's go to Deuteronomy, well, 2 Chronicles 6. 2 Chronicles 6. 2 Chronicles 6. Because we want to see what he did. Then Solomon, the Lord has said, then said Solomon, the Lord has said that he would dwell in the thick darkness. But I have built a house of habitation for thee, and a place where thou dwellest forever. So he built this place, and God's presence was actually there. Even you read about where he said, man, even when in the old days when they were in the wilderness, they had a tabernacle. You know, he was like, listen, when you go out and ease yourself abroad, listen, you better take a paddle and cover that, basically that waist up, because I walk in the midst of you. See, and that's one thing God has been trying to do from the very beginning, commune with man. But man has been rejecting God. When Adam and Eve, they sinned against God, they were rejecting God. And because of sin, that's you. Through sin, you separate yourself from God. Israel, he's trying to dwell with Israel. He brought them out of Egyptian bondage, spoiled the Egyptians, split the Red Sea, brought this mighty kingdom down to his knees, allowed these people to go out, establish themselves, gave them a law, gave them sovereignty, gave them land, the labor of the land. Other people, they inherited the labor of other people as far as that land went. Other people set it up for, and yet they still build a golden calf, still murmuring, still trying to make a captain to go back into Egypt, acting like some straight up Negroes, stiff-necked, hard-headed, and separating themselves from God. So, but God is trying to commune with you. And one example, big example of that is the temple. So it said, but I have built a house. This is 2 Chronicles 6:2. But I have built a house of habitation for thee and a place for thy dwelling forever. The king turned his face and blessed the whole congregation of Israel. And all the congregation of Israel stood, and he said, Blessed be the Lord God of Israel, who hath with his hands fulfilled that which he spake with his mouth to my father David, saying, since the day that I brought forth my people out of the land of Egypt, I chose no city among all the tribes of Israel to build an house in, that my name might be there. Neither chose I any man to be a ruler over my people, but I have chosen Jerusalem, that my name might be there, and have chosen David to be over my people, Israel. We know even amongst the resurrected beings, he's going to be king. I'm talking about David. But it says about a place being chose. Let's go to Deuteronomy, because that was prophesied. We want to go to Deuteronomy. That was foretold. Deuteronomy 16. Deuteronomy 16, and we want to pick it up. Deuteronomy 16 and verse 16. Because it was told that a specific place was going to be chosen. This is Deuteronomy 16 and verse 16. Let's read it. It says, Three times in a year shall all thy males appear before the Lord thy God in the place which he shall choose. Okay? And we know that was Jerusalem. So that was, people make a pilgrimage to Mecca. I understand. That's some nonsense. Okay? Even Muhammad, what were they doing? They was dealing with Jerusalem before they were rejected. Right? Then he said, turn to Mecca. Right? Because understand where that come from. You got to think and it's not a continuation of what was written, nor it is an add-on. It is basically well, the Quran is a recitation, but it's falsehood. Even when you look at where even Allah come from, they tell you that just means God, brother. We worshiping the same God. Don't you believe it? Allah Pior, that's not the same God as the God of Israel. That's a false God. That's a false God. But nevertheless, said 3 times in a year shall all thy males appear before the Lord thy God. So they will make a pilgrimage, so to speak, to Jerusalem. All the males 3 times a year. Feast of unleavened bread, Feast of Weeks, which is the feast of also known as Pentecost, and Feast of Tabernacles. So it says, 3 times in a year shall all thy males appear before the Lord thy God in the place which he shall choose. And he chose Jerusalem. It says in the Feast of Unleavened Bread, and in the Feast of Weeks, and in the Feast of Tabernacles, and they shall not appear before me empty. Let's go to 2 Chronicles. Let's go back to 2 Chronicles. Because we want to pick up something else about this particular spot. This is 2 Chronicles, and we want to pick it up in 2 Chronicles, the 6th chapter. And we want to read something here. Because Solomon has a prayer of dedication for that temple. Let's read this. Let's pick it up. See, this is all related. This is 2 Chronicles, the 6th chapter. And we want to pick it up at verse 6. It says, but I have chosen Jerusalem. Well, I'm going to read verse 5. Since the day that I brought forth my people out of the land of Egypt, I chose no city among all the tribes of Israel to build an house in, that my name might be there. Neither chose I any man to be a ruler over my people, but I have chosen Jerusalem, that my name might be there, and have chosen David to be over my people, Israel. Now, it was in the heart of David, my father, to build a house for the name of the Lord. This is Solomon, God of Israel. But the Lord said to David, my father, for as much as it was in thine heart to build an house for my name, thou didst well in that it was in thine heart. Notwithstanding, thou shalt not build the house, but thy son which shall come forth out of thy loins, he shall build the house for my name. The Lord therefore hath performed his word that he hath spoken. For I am risen up in the room of David my father, and am set on the throne of Israel as the Lord promised, and have built the house for the name of the Lord God of Israel. And in it have I put the ark, wherein is the covenant of the Lord that he made with the children of Israel. Then it says, and he stood before the altar of the Lord in the presence of all the congregation of Israel, and spread forth his hands. Now he's going to start to praying now. So it says, for Solomon had made a brazen, I'm going to skip down a little bit. In verse, so because he's kneeled down upon his knees before all the congregation, and spread forth his hands toward heaven, and said, O Lord God of Israel, there is no God like thee in the heaven, nor in the earth, which keepeth covenant, and showest mercy unto thy servants that walk before thee with all their hearts. Thou which hast kept with thy servant David my father, that which thou hast promised him, and spakest with thy mouth, and hast fulfilled it with thine hand, as it is this day. Now therefore, Lord God of Israel, keep with thy servant David my father that which thou hast promised him, saying, there shall not fail thee a man in my sight to sit upon the throne of Israel. Yes, so that thy children take heed to their way to walk in my law, as thou hast walked before me. See, you want to stay there, you got to keep the law. You got to keep the law. All right. We want to skip down a little bit, though. Let's go to verse 19. Well, let's skip down to verse. We're going to skip down to verse 33. Okay, it says, then hear thou from the heaven, even from thy dwelling place, and do according to all that the stranger calleth to thee for, that all people of the earth may know thy name, and fear thee as doth thy people Israel, and may know that this house which I have built is called by thy name. If thy people go out to war against their enemies by the way that thou shalt send them, and they pray unto thee toward this city, which thou hast chosen, and the house which I have built for thy name, then hear thou from the heavens their prayer and their supplication, and maintain their cause, if they sin against thee, for there is no man which sinneth not. And thou be angry with them, and deliver them over before their enemies, and they carry them away captives unto a land far off or near. So understand this prayer. He said, listen, this is the prayer dedication of the temple. He said, Lord, if your people are carried away captive into a far off land, it said far off or near, yet if they bethink themselves in the land whither they are carried captive, and turn and pray unto thee in the land of their captivity, saying, we have sinned, we have done amiss, and have dealt wickedly. If they return to thee with all their heart, with all their soul in the land of their captivity, whether they have carried them captives, and pray toward their land, this city in particular, Jerusalem, which thou gavest unto their fathers, and toward the city which thou hast chosen, and toward the house which I have built for thy name, then hear thou from heaven, from the heavens, even from thy dwelling place, their prayer and their supplications, and maintain their cause, and forgive thy people which have sinned against thee. Because that's what got kicked out of the land anyway. So let's see, first of all, so that was a prayer. If you get cast out into slavery, or in the like we're in the diaspora right now, it said and if they pray to you, Lord Heavenly Father, they turn you with a whole heart and pray to you toward this city. It said, hear that prayer. Now let's go to 2 Chronicles 7, just to see if it was confirmed. And then we're gonna look at something. This is 2 Chronicles 7 and verse 1. It says, now when Solomon had made an end of praying, the fire came down from heaven and consumed the burnt offering and the sacrifices, and the glory of the Lord filled the house. So much so that the priest couldn't even go in there. But that confirms the prayer. The Lord wouldn't have did that if it did not confirm the prayer. And that's why it says in verse 3, and when the children of Israel saw how the fire came down and the glory of the Lord upon the house, they bowed themselves with their faces to the ground upon the pavement and worshiped and praised the Lord, saying, for he is good, for his mercy endure forever. All right? And that's why you read, when you talk about, if my people which are called by my name shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and will heal their land. That's in verse 14. But he said, if they've been taken into captivity, right? Let's read something. Let's read Deuteronomy. We're not gonna read all of Deuteronomy. I suggest you read all of Deuteronomy on your own. Many of us might be familiar with it, but it's always good to revisit it because it's talking about your whole black experience. See, we want to do everything but what thus saith the Lord. We want to have conferences, right? We want to have State of the Union addresses, right? We want to have lectures, sit around and charge people money to have a lecture to see what, see if that's going to solve the problem. We want to take up arms. We want to vote, right? We want to do nothing God said, but still pray to God. But he told you specifically what to do. You have to turn back to God with your whole heart. You have to be obedient unto him and do what he says and pray toward that place. But let's look at our condition and see if it warrants what he said, because he said if you taken into captivity. Let's go to Deuteronomy 28. And we're going to pick it up at verse 28 and verse 15. It says, but it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. So he said, cursed shalt thou be in the city, cursed shalt thou be in the field, cursed shall be thy basket and thy store, cursed shall be the fruit of thy body and the fruit of thy land, the increase of thy kind, and the flocks of thy sheep. Everything's going to be cursed. Wherever you go, you can't escape it. Your children are going to be cursed. Look at our children right now. First of all, look at our condition right now. I mentioned economically, we're in a terrible situation. Black people own less land than they did in the 1800s, as far as farmland. Black people have a family net worth of approximately $5,000. You take out the family cars, it goes down to like $2,000. Living paycheck to paycheck, right? Even though you have these people amongst us every so often who will come and get some money, the masses of our people, and they might be living in a house, but they don't have true wealth. We don't have true wealth. So it says some things here. It says in verse 30, thou shalt betroth a wife, and another man shall lie with her. Again, a man coming through the front door, taking your wife, like I said, like I was talking about earlier. That's what this is talking about. Thou shalt betroth a wife, and another man shall lie with her. Thou shalt build an house, and thou shalt not dwell therein. Thou shalt plant a vineyard, and shalt not gather the grapes thereof. Black folks, men in particular, and women experience rape. Men were powerless. A system of brutality. Women was objectified and subjugated to slave masters, raping them, even on the ships. They didn't wait, even on the ships. They got on those plantations, this master, this beast, and he's acting like a beast coming through the front door, raping a woman. So it said, thou shalt betroth a wife, and another man shall lie with her. Right? That's not talking about he coming through the back door sneaking. He's telling you to get out. He's taking her, him and his friends are taking her. That's what was going on. It says, thou shalt build an house, and thou shalt not dwell in. And that's another, let me point this out real quick. See, this should show you how and I'm gonna do something on marriage. The brother asked to do something on marriage. I'm gonna do something on marriage too. Because he had a question. I'm gonna do something on marriage. I want to do this first. But when you look at what happened after slavery, what were black men trying to do? The slaves in general, our people were trying to reestablish their families. Find people that have been sold. They wanted family life. They wanted marriages that were recognized by the law. Even that's one of the first things they had to do at the time of Reconstruction. That was one of the main requests, marriage licenses, right? Because marriage was not recognized. They would jump the broom and have some kind of ceremony amongst the slaves, but it was not recognized by law. and that slave owner will take your wife, rape her, have his way with her, or sell her, do whatever, right? Discipline your kids. So when that time was over, let me tell you what black men were trying to do. And they need to take an example out of these brothers' books who were coming out of slavery. One of the things you saw that was common was they wanted to be married. They wanted to reestablish their family ties. You had people walking hundreds of miles trying to find family members. Okay? So they're trying to reestablish family. You saw back then that children were born in wedlock after that. Okay? In addition to that, what were they doing? They were trying to, if they were able to get land, or they were even working on land, they didn't necessarily want their wives working in the fields if they had land. They were trying to reestablish themselves and take care of their families and be men, because they were deprived manhood during slavery. And you look at us today, we don't care nothing about our woman, but we need to. We certainly need to. But this is very, you got these all this foolishness on YouTube. I was thinking about this the other day. I said, man, it's just so much foolishness on YouTube. Where you got black men dogging black women talking about they don't want a black man and they want to swirl and do all this foolishness. But who was in the hull of that ship? And the hull of the ship chained together. Or actually, who was up? A lot of times they didn't do that. Was on top of the ship with the women and children and the men underneath. So who was the cargo, I should ask? Who was the cargo? Who has suffered so much? Why be disunited? Why be fooled by what people are calling feminism? That's another woman's fight with her man. Black men need to take, and again, black men need to take responsibility. We need to take responsibility in a lot of ways, even spiritually, being the spiritual heads of our homes, not just the financial breadwinner, but the spiritual head of the household, the disciplinarian, the stronger vessel. That's what we need to do. Not a tyrant, but as Christ loved the church, willing to sacrifice it all. Like I said, like I was talking about, they took the women. They took the women, kidnapped the women in those examples I gave. It's time to ride if that happened. And willing to lay down your life without even thinking about it to protect your woman. But let's go down to verse 45. It says, in verse 32, it says, thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people, and thine eyes shall look and fail with longing for them all the day long, and there shall be no might in thine hand. Like I said, that's what was going on in slavery. See, the people that call themselves the Israelis, that didn't happen to them. But the so-called Negro, the so-called African American, that happened to us. Children sold, no might in their hand. And like I said, people walking hundreds of miles after slavery was abolished, trying to reestablish family ties, trying to find their loved ones, trying to find wife, trying to find son, trying to find daughter, trying to find mother. So it says, verse 45, moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee and shall pursue thee and overtake thee till thou be destroyed, because thou hearkenest not unto the voice of the Lord thy God to keep his commandments and his statutes which he commanded thee. Let's skip down to verse, let's skip down, because it says in verse 64, and the Lord shall scatter thee among the people. And remember that prayer Solomon had, if they be cast out, taken into captivity near or far. It says, and the Lord shall scatter thee, this is verse 64, among all people, from the one end of the earth even unto the other. You're going to be scattered all over. So you see us all over. And it says, and there thou shalt serve other gods. You don't want to serve the true and living God? These curses are going to come upon you, and you're going to serve these false gods. And that's what we do. What did they give us in captivity? They gave us a false Christianity. And that's why a lot of our people, they say, well, Christianity is false. That Bible is false. Because they read it from the wrong perspective. They read it from the adulterated perspective. They reading it from the slave master's perspective. They reading it from, and they weren't the people anyway, right? They weren't the people. They manipulating the situation, giving you a false religion and shackling you spiritually with it. Like I saw one of our people the other day. I'm looking at him, he preaching. He got a white Christ above his head hanging. What are you doing? What are you doing? First of all, you got an idol in the church. Second of all, you shouldn't have no depiction, period. But that's wrong, even if that's totally wrong. You in there on the wrong day. And the man up there preaching, he got some everything's a ploy, everything's a gimmick. He got some crush pop up there, he got a cookie jar up there, he got some cookies, and he just talking madness. And he's supposed to be preaching. He's supposed to be preaching. But see, that's the foolishness that we've inherited. That's just a result of the foolishness that we've inherited in slavery. So it says, and among these nations shalt thou find no ease, neither shall the sole of thy foot have rest, but the Lord shall give thee there a trembling heart and failing of eyes and sorrow of mind. You think about what was going on in slavery. We had no ease. And I mean none. They might allow you to dance in front of the house or maybe have some sermon on Sunday. Okay? Give them time to dance because they're going to be working them sun up to sundown. If you don't bring that quota in, you're going to feel it on your back with this bullwhip. No ease. Even after slavery. You saw what happened. They had 40 acres and a mule. Black folks had it about 2 seconds. Then the white folks came back. You know what they did? Government did. They gave them white folks back their land and said, hey, you can stay here if you sign a contract to work. Re-enslaving the people through sharecropping. We became sharecropping, right? And then subjugating the people further, suppressing the vote, right? Back then, it was the Democrats, the white man's party, subjugating people, not allowing them to vote, bringing terror upon them, right? Through night riders, the Ku Klux Klan. And now what do you have? Still being terrorized. Klan infiltrated the police department. They always had a connection. Now they infiltrated the police departments. Now they shooting you for no reason. How you laying on the ground with your hands up and still get shot? You are on the ground with your hands up and still get shot. How you get shot in the back for some child support? How you end up dead over a ticket, over a traffic violation, when the cop is behind you, speeding up on your tail, so you get over, let him by, and he pull you over for not signaling, and you end up dead. How is it that you in the projects coming out your apartment and it's dark in there, and the cop's in there, he got his hand on his gun, he's scared, so he just starts shooting and kill you? How is it you get choked out over some cigarettes, allegedly, with an illegal chokehold saying you can't breathe? See, that's the terror we face. You could be ill, and that's the thing, when you have to have a talk with your son and your daughter, right? How is it you're on the side of the road and for your own protection, the police officer gonna punch you in the face? This is for your own protection. It's a woman. This is for your own protection. He beating you in the face because you on the side of the road on the highway. How is it that I asked you for you in the Carolinas? I asked the cop, not me, but the cop asked you for your license and registration. You getting out the car, and when you go get it, he run past you like he a madman and shoot you. And you have to ask the question, why did you shoot me? Because you was reaching. Say, you asked me for my ID, but you just want to shoot some black people. You shooting in a car. This recently in Chicago, you shooting in a car with kids in the car. Or the man, I think that was in Carolina. It's so many case after case after case. It's back to Chicago. You unload your clip on somebody who wasn't a threat to you. You just unload your clip. Or they take you into one of these sites and torture you. Like they was doing not that long ago. That's terror, brothers and sisters. But nevertheless, I went on a tangent, but oh well. Verse 66. It says, and thy life shall hang in doubt before thee, and thou shalt fear day and night, and shalt have none assurance of thy life. So we got a whole other set of problems. That's why I was saying, You talk about people talking about they want to swear, they want to be with somebody else. Understand? We got as a people, black men and black women, so-called Negroes, so-called African Americans, we have a whole nother set of problems that other people simply don't have. They simply don't, just on that merit alone. But nevertheless, in the morning thou shalt say with God, it will even, and at even thou shalt say with God, it will morning. For the fear of thy heart, wherewith thou shalt fear, and for the sight of thine eyes, which thou shalt see. And the Lord, this is from the Lord, it says, shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again, and there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you, meaning nobody's going to redeem you. And we've been cast into slavery by way of ships and have not been home yet, but we think we free. We think we free. We have not been home yet. We don't even know who we are. We can't even think in our original tongue. We have to use this English. We get reprimanded for not having our hand over our heart during the national anthem, which was written, a song written by a racist slave owner. And when you read the lyrics that were taken out, he's talking about the blood of the slaves washing away the filth of the British being there. And you get reprimanded for not being patriotic. What is really to be patriotic about? Land of the free, holding the brave. But if you say stuff like what I'm saying, you a problem. You're a problem when you point out the things that are going on. Oh, you're not patriotic. Why you not standing up? Look people talk about the Confederate flag. Look what's happening under the American flag. Look what's happening under the American flag. Government sanctioned terror. This is even something like the Ku Klux Klan, like I mentioned earlier, just boggles the mind. Not really, because the system of white supremacy is working as it was set up to work. But how is it that that's not a? How is it legal you could be in the Ku Klux Klan? How is that? That's a terrorist organization. But they'll get on TV. They'll have rallies. That'd be like, that's similar to like whatever terrorist organization you want to say walking down the street having a rally. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. But they serve a purpose too. They serve a purpose too. We're going to go to one more place and then I'm going to pick this up later. Just show you the example, brothers and sisters, because he said, if you be cast into slavery. And why is this significant? He said, pray toward this city. And it was confirmed. And we know we've been cast into slavery far throughout all the earth. Right? Let's see an example. Because the example is there, but we don't want to take heed. Understand? Listen, times are not going to get better. Times are about to get real bad. That's what people don't understand. For black people in particular, you think it's bad now. Wait a while. Just wait a little while longer. Times are going to get rough. Times are they're already rough, but they're going to get rough. Daniel 6 and verse, I'm going to pick it up at verse 10. I just want to read verse 10. Because these no good men trying to get Daniel caught up with this writing, with this decree that they made that you couldn't make any petition or prayer to anybody else but the king, King Darius. And King Darius signed the decree not understanding what they were trying to do. They were trying to catch up Daniel. But when Daniel, see, that's one thing. Daniel didn't care. Daniel believed. Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, they believed for real. That was some straight up faith. They said, hey, listen, we're not going to bow down to your gods. You know, our God can deliver us, but if not, we know he's able to do it, but if not, we not going to bow down to that image, to your image, or the gods which you set up. And they were cast into a burning, fiery furnace. Daniel knew the decree was signed. And he said, you talking about I ain't gonna pray? Let me open my windows. This verse 10. Now when Daniel knew that the writing was signed, he went into his house, and his windows being open in his chamber toward Jerusalem. Why is he praying? Because he is a captive. Where is he praying towards? Jerusalem. What are you? A captive. if you are of the diaspora, you are the remnant of the ones that more than likely came out of Israel, went into the interior of Africa, settled amongst those peoples, and through those tribal wars were taken and sold by way of ships. That's how that took place. See, Israel didn't run up into Europe. They ran up in the interior of Africa and had settlements there. But then when it was time to sell us, that's what they did. It's not a coincidence when you look at the tribes we come from and what people say about those tribes and how they, man, say, man, these are Jews. The Igbo, these are some Hebrews. The Yoruba, who are these people? Understand what it is. The Bible is real. Man has been lying. But nevertheless, he says, now when Daniel knew that the writing was signed, he went into his house, and his windows being open in his chamber toward Jerusalem. He kneeled upon his knees 3 times a day and prayed and gave thanks before his God as he did aforetime. And that's what we need to do. That's why Jerusalem is significant, brothers and sisters. This is a city that he chose. It's a city of kings. It's the great king. It's a city of peace. We're going to read more about that. But it's also, brothers and sisters, the place by which our people, the children of Israel, were told to pray towards when they were in captivity. Why can't we try this? We can try that. Turning back to God and praying toward that land. That's what we need to do. You don't think God will hear us if we do what he says to do? He didn't tell you to make some signs and go lay out in the street, brothers and sisters. He didn't tell you to go out and chant no justice, no peace. Man, I'm so sick of that chant, I don't know what to do. You always say no justice, no peace, no justice, no peace. And you don't ever get any justice, but they sure calm down. They sure calm down. He didn't tell you to do that. Nor did he tell you to get up and get some guns. He didn't tell you to do that. He told you to pray toward Jerusalem. Turn back to me with your whole heart and sincerity and truth, and pray toward that place. And he'll hear us if we do that. That's what we need to do. Time out for all this other foolishness. Trying to integrate. You need to be, like I said, it was the last lesson, I believe I mentioned what King said. I believe I'm integrating my people into a burning house. Understand what time it is. Understand what time it is. We need to be getting back with our God. Forget everything else. And with that, brothers and sisters, I want to thank you for your time. And Lord willing, I will see you on Wednesday at 10 p.m. God bless you. Keep the faith.